I was just thinking that we need to have a real conversation about what happened to Renee Good. And we need to talk about it in a way that's going to make some people uncomfortable. I mean, we just got to be real about this. Because for a long time, there was this unspoken rule in America. If you're a citizen and you're white and you're a poet mom, you're safe. You have this invisible shield, and Renee believed that. You know, she was out there with a whistle trying to protect her neighbors from an ICE raid because she thought her status would protect her, and she was wrong because we've seen how this shield works firsthand. Like, I remember a time I messed up on the job, and this was years ago. I say this was about 20 years ago or so, to where I was running this machine, and this white supervisor I had was going to write me up because I spliced the cable, which I should have cleared it first before I turned on my button, right? And this supervisor got mad and was talking about he was going to write me up and call in the union steward. You know, because when you write somebody up, the union steward got to be there for the shift. But anyway, the union steward, who was also white, was there at the same time. He stepped in, and the manager was like, I'm going to write him up because he damaged the cable and this and that. And he's going to cost us to be down about 2 hours because maintenance said it's going to take that long for us to replace it and then bring the heat back up. But here's the point where the white dude stood up for me, the black dude, which you don't see that often. I was about to get rolled up for doing something that caused the machine to fuck up and go down. And the white union steward was in there, and this manager is white, and I'm black. And he's talking about, I'm going to write him up because he did this and that, and this and that. And the white union steward said, don't you remember the time I did it? You didn't write me up. And see what I'm saying? This fucking manager couldn't do nothing. So he just said, okay, this is just a warning this time. See, somebody stood up for me, but you don't see that too often. And that steward used his shield to protect me. He used his status to say that if the rules apply to him, then they have to apply to me too. And that's what a shield is for. That's for standing in the gap when a system wants to be unfair. And Renee Good was trying to be that union steward for her Somali neighbors. She was out there with her whistle, thinking, oh, they won't mess with me. I'm a citizen. I'm a poet. I'm white. I can use my shield to make sure they treat my neighbors right. But the difference between my job in that street in Minneapolis is that the federal government is not a boss you can argue with. When Renee stood in that gap, the state didn't respect her shield. They blew right through it. They showed us that in 2026, the union steward doesn't get a seat at the table anymore. If you try to protect someone that the system has already targeted, then you become the target yourself. And here's the detail that should haunt us. She was killed just 1 mile from the spot where George Floyd was murdered. And that city hasn't finished healing from 2020. And now the federal government has turned the same streets into a war zone. Because think about the pain of that morning on January 7th. Renee and Becca, her wife, they drove their SUV right into the middle of a federal operation, blocking the ICE officers from using the road. They wasn't there to riot. It's been said by local leaders like the mayor and the attorney general for Minneapolis that they were acting as legal observers. I mean, Renee was a protester, and she was part of this ICE Watch rapid response group formed by some parents at her son's school. But her family, specifically her ex-husband, was saying that she wasn't a career activist, but which was just simply acting on her values as a neighbor that morning. And she had just dropped her son off at school, and they wanted to document ICE activities to support their neighbors. And as her wife Becca put it, we had whistles and they had guns. But anyway, the agent Jonathan Ross walks around the SUV with his phone out, filming Renee and her wife, who was in the passenger seat. And her wife didn't hide. She got out from the passenger side and stood firm to protect Renee and what they were doing. And she was kind of like being smart with them, like, we don't change our license plates every morning. Y'all want to come at us? Go get some lunch, big boy. You know, standing her ground. And she was filming the agents through her cell phone using the only weapon she had, which was accountability. And while Renee's wife was standing outside, standing up to those federal agents, Renee remained calm behind the wheel because you can see her in the video saying, "That's fine, dude. I'm not mad," trying to de-escalate the situation. And really, they were basically bickering about her license plates, and it didn't seem valid at first, just a tense standoff. But things got crazy once the other agents showed up. They run up to the driver's seat and started screaming at her, telling her to get out of the car. And you could see Agent Ross still right there filming the whole thing through his phone, while the other agents are yelling and grabbing the door handle. And the government was asking, well, how come she didn't get out of the car? And that's a fair question. But when you look at the footage, she was in a trap, because you had one agent screaming for her to keep her hands up, while another one was grabbing the door handle, screaming for her to get out. And here's the part that everybody was arguing about. From the agent's phone view, Renee puts the car in reverse for a second, then shifts and hits the gas to drive away. She turns the steering wheel hard to the right, which actually points the car away from where Agent Ross was standing. And Agent Ross yelled, "Whoa!" And the camera shakes like crazy, pointing up at the sky for a second. And right then, while the car is pulling away, he pulls his gun out and shoots her 3 times through her window. And Renee died behind that wheel where her car was rolling by itself until it crashed into other parked vehicles. But what was also bothersome to me was what happened after the shots that revealed the true character of this operation. Because while Renee died behind the wheel from a gunshot to the face, Agent Ross didn't ask for help. He showed no remorse for what he did. He was caught on audio calling her a fucking bitch. And that's cold. A dying mother who didn't pose as a threat, who told them that she wasn't mad at them. And by him calling her that, we would have thought that she might have ran him over, but she actually didn't. I mean, the video is shaky, and Agent Ross reacted like he got hit. But when you look at the footage closely, the car wasn't actually headed for him. His feet was clear of the tires, and the car was turning in the opposite direction where he started shooting. And this just shows how little the government cares about the people it's supposed to protect. They didn't see a mother or a poet. They saw an enemy. And what he did, that's a state crime. He had no right to try to get her out of the car. And these ICE agents are just a bunch of thugs and criminals. They're fighting to put Agent Ross in jail, and I hope he goes, because it's getting too late. They need to arrest this monster because he killed an innocent woman. She lost her life for no reason. She was just protesting. She was in her car. She showed no harm or didn't appear as a threat. And he kills her, and saying he did it out of self-defense. But the mayor, Jacob Fry, saw the footage, and he didn't hold back. He called the story exactly what it was: bullshit. And he told ICE to get the F out of Minneapolis, because he knows that this ain't about safety. They're just being thugs and criminals. But that's the professionalism we're being told to respect. And the government didn't even wait for the facts to call her a domestic terrorist, because they didn't see her so-called privilege. They saw an obstacle, because the second she used her voice to stand up for her neighbors, her whiteness stopped being a shield and started being a target. And it's making non-racist white people afraid. And that's exactly what the government wants, because there's a lot of people watching this right now, white allies, who want to stand up for minorities, who see the injustice, but they're terrified to speak, because a lot of them got families who see things differently. They got parents, siblings, and spouses who think that this current administration could do no wrong, who view any disagreement as treason or wokeness. And in many white conservative circles, there's this immense pressure to conform. If you're white, you're supposed to think a certain way. You're supposed to stay in line. And Renee Good broke that line. She put her minivan between the neighbors and the federal agency. And what happened to her is being used as a warning to everybody else, because the state is saying, look what happens when you step out of your lane. Look what happens when you trade your shield for a whistle. If Renee hadn't been out there protesting, she would still be alive. And the message being sent right now is clear. Your safety is conditional on your silence. They want to scare the whiteness out of the movement so that minorities are left to stand alone. And Renee's death proves that the shield only exists as long as you stay silent. The second you use your voice for someone else, The second you stand in the way of the machine, your status, your race, and your citizenship disappears. And I'm going to be honest with you, I never thought that I'll see the day where there'll be nationwide protesters in all 50 states demanding justice for a white woman shot by ICE. You know, white on white crime for defending Somalis. But that's where we are in 2026. You know, people are realizing that if the state can execute a poet, insult her as she dies, and call her a terrorist, then nobody's safe. But that's all I want to say, folks. This is Big Brother's Perspective sounded out. I'm out. Peace.